They shoved her before she could cross the gym's battered threshold. Her worn gray t-shirt clung to her slight 27-year-old frame. Sneakers' frayed gloves cracked like shattered dreams. "Charity case, huh?" The receptionist spat her voice, a knife twisting in the crowd's roar. "She's here to beg for scraps." A fighter sneered, phones flashing to steal her dignity. She stood silent, her trembling hand clutching the pen, eyes burning with unspoken fire. To them, she was just a joke in their ring. But she held the secret that would break their world. Her silence screamed louder than their cruelty. Felt that sting of being dismissed. "Stay with us, this fight's yours too." Like share and drop your story. When did you prove them wrong? The gym gleamed with a cruel kind of light. Its polished concrete floors and mirrored walls screamed dominance, but she was a smudge against its shine. Mia Carver stepped through the rusted door, her presence a whisper in a room roaring with ego. The Iron Forge gym in Austin, Texas was no ordinary workout spot. Its cinder-block walls, scarred with sweat, held the weight of 1,000 victories. Heavy bags hung like silent sentinels, swaying under the fists of men who fought for clout, not growth. The air was thick, sharp with liniment, and the buzz of fluorescent lights that cast long, unforgiving shadows. This was a gladiator's pit, where every month the open sparring event drew wolves in tank tops, cops with buzz cuts, ex-Marines with dog tags, amateur kickboxers hungry for glory. They didn't come to spar. They came to break. Chrome benches lined the walls, reflecting the glow of neon signs boasting "Champions Train Here." The ring at the center was a battered throne, its ropes sagging canvas stained with the arrogance of those who'd stood atop it. Music pulsed low, a bass line that matched the rhythm of shadowboxing fists. Men laughed, their voices booming, their gloves gleaming with fresh leather. Women too circled the edges, some fighters, some spectators, but all part of the hierarchy that thrived on power. The crowd was a living thing, its eyes scanning for weakness, its cheers a verdict. Into this furnace, Mia walked unnoticed at first, her gray t-shirt faded, her black leggings worn thin at the knees. Her cracked gloves, relics of a past life, hung loose at her sides. At 27, she was slight 5'2", her dark hair pulled into a low bun, her hazel eyes shadowed under a frayed cap. She carried no brand, no swagger. Just a quiet resolve that felt out of place like a candle in a storm. She slid past a group of fighters, her sneakers silent on the gritty floor. The receptionist, a woman with sharp nails and sharper eyes, leaned over the counter, her branded hoodie stretched tight. Tara Vance, the gym's gatekeeper, smirked as Mia signed the roster. "You here on a discount pass, sweetheart?" Tara's voice cut through the noise loud enough for the crowd to turn. A chuckle rippled across the room, head swiveling to size up the newcomer. Mia's pen paused, her fingers tightening briefly, but her eyes stayed on the paper. She wrote her name with deliberate care, as if inscribing a promise. Tara leaned closer, her laugh a blade. "Those gloves look like they've seen better days. Hope you brought cab fare home." The crowd snickered, phones glinting as they caught Mia's faded gear, her scuffed sneakers. A fighter in a sleeveless tee, his biceps bulging, nudged his friend. "Bet she's here to film a fitness reel. $10, she bolts before the bell." Mia moved to a corner near the water cooler, her shadow small against the mirrored wall. She adjusted her cap, her movements precise, almost ritualistic. The gym's pulse didn't slow, it throbbed louder, fed by the crowd's restless energy. A female coach, Lauren Holt, strode past, her ponytail, swinging her branded tank top, a badge of authority. She spotted Mia and laughed, her voice sharp enough to halt a nearby heavy bag. "What's this, a yoga dropout looking for trouble?" The words landed like a jab, drawing grins from the fighters. Lauren crossed her arms, her smirk wide. "Stick to stretching, Han. This place eats dreamers like you." The crowd's laughter was a wave washing over Mia's still frame. Her hazel eyes didn't lift, her hands wrapping tape with a slow, steady rhythm, each loop a silent defiance. The fighters resumed their warm-ups, their knuckles cracking, their eyes flicking toward Mia with casual disdain. A SWAT officer, his badge clipped to his gym bag, muttered to a buddy, "She's got no business here. Look at her, wind could snap her in half." His friend nodded, phone raised already, typing a hashtag. The air grew heavier, the gym's hierarchy closing ranks against the outsider, yet something flickered in the chaos. A janitor, his mop paused, glanced at Mia's name on the roster, and froze, his eyes narrowing as if recognizing a ghost. No one noticed. No one cared. Mia stood alone, her cap low, her t-shirt loose, her silence a wall against the storm. The room pulsed with anticipation, its eyes blind to the fire she carried. And as the first bell loomed, the gym's roar seemed to falter just for a moment, as if it sensed the reckoning to come. Who let her in? Lauren Holt's voice sliced through the iron-forged gym's roar, sharp as a whip, stopping Mia Carver dead in her tracks. The coach's ponytail flicked her branded tank top, a flag of authority, her smirk, a challenge that turned every head. Mia froze mid-step, her gray t-shirt loose, her cracked gloves dangling like relics of a forgotten war. The gym's pulse quickened its mirrored walls, reflecting a crowd hungry for sport. Lauren leaned against the ring's ropes, her laugh a spark igniting the air. "You here to mop the floor, sweetheart, or just lost on your way to Zumba?" The words landed like a fist, and the crowd erupted their chuckles, a chorus that drowned the bass line, thumping from the speakers. Fighters paused their heavy bags, their gloves still, their eyes raking over Mia's slight frame. A SWAT officer, his badge glinting on his gym bag, joined in, his voice booming over the clatter of weights. "Yo, someone tell the Pilates princess this ain't a dance studio." His buddy snickered. Phone raised the hashtag #JockisGymFail, already flickering across screens. Another voice, a female fighter with shiny new gear, cut through the haze. "She's embarrassing us. Thinks she's Ronda Rousey with those thrift store leggings." The laughter swelled a tidal wave, crashing over Mia's still form. Her hazel eyes stayed low, her hands wrapping tape with mechanical precision, each loop a silent vow. The crowd's amusement was a blade carving her presence into a punchline. It didn't stop there. A burly gym rat, his tank top soaked, shoved past Mia, his shoulder grazing hers, deliberate and hard. "Move it, kid. You're blocking the real fighters." His words drew nods from the men circling the ring, their knuckles cracking like gunfire. Someone tossed an empty water bottle her way, its plastic clattering at her feet, a casual insult masked as a mistake. A trainer, his whistle dangling, leaned toward a fighter, his voice loud enough for all to hear. "She's got no place here. Look at that frame, breeze could snap her." The crowd's phones flashed, capturing Mia's faded t-shirt, her scuffed sneakers, their cheers spiking with mockery. Mia stepped aside her sneakers, silent, her cap shadowing her face. But the weight of their scorn pressed harder, a noose tightening with every laugh. The assault grew sharper as Mia neared the ring. Tara, the receptionist, now circling with a clipboard, called out, her voice dripping with pity. "Hey, budget gloves need a map to the exit. This is a champion's game." The crowd roared, their eyes dissecting Mia's worn gear, her small stature a spectacle. A young male fighter, his wraps fresh, chimed in. "Bet she breaks her wrist before anyone touches her." His laugh was a spark fanning the crowd's frenzy. Then came Derek Holt, the gym's reigning kickboxing king, a 78-kilo titan whose presence silenced the room. His gloves gleamed, his grin wide, his tank top stretched across a chest built for dominance. He swaggered toward the ring, spotting Mia's quiet form. "Lost your yoga class, girl." His voice was thunder, shaking the mirrors. "Climb up. I'll send you home in 10 seconds flat." The gym held its breath, every eye on Mia as she climbed the ropes, her movements slow, deliberate like a soldier stepping into a minefield. The crowd's laughter peaked, a vicious symphony, their phones zooming in on her faded leggings, her cracked gloves. Lauren, by the ropes, delivered the final blow, her voice low, but venomous, cutting, deeper than any shout. "You're not a fighter, Mia. You're a nobody who wandered into the wrong world." The words hung heavy, the room falling silent as if the air itself had turned to stone. Mia stood in the ring, her hazel eyes locked on the canvas, her scarred hands flexing her body still as a statue. The crowd waited, their breath held, expecting tears surrender anything but resistance. But Mia didn't break. She raised her head, her cap tilting just enough to catch the light. Her silence a fire smoldering beneath the gym's cruel glare. The bell was seconds away, and the room's pulse seemed to stutter, as if it knew the storm was coming. The gym's roar faded, and Mia Carver stood alone, a ghost no one saw. The Iron Forge's mirrors reflected a crowd that had turned away. Their laughter spent, their phones lowered as if she'd never existed. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, casting her shadow small against the concrete floor. Her gray t-shirt hung loose, her cracked gloves limp at her sides, her cap shadowing eyes that burned with questions. The air felt heavier, thick with the scent of liniment and indifference. She shuffled to a corner by the water cooler, its hum the only sound that acknowledged her. The ring loomed behind its rope, sagging, a silent judge of her worth. No one looked, no one spoke. She was nothing here, just a smudge on their polished world. In that stillness, Mia's mind churned a storm trapped in a fragile shell. Was Lauren right? Was she a nobody stumbling into a place that would never open its doors? Her hands trembled as she adjusted her tape. Each loop a reminder of the years she'd fought to be seen. Maybe she'd been wrong to come back to think she could reclaim what was stolen. The gym's mirrors threw her reflection back, a slight figure out of place. Her faded leggings, a flag of surrender. She closed her eyes, and the noise of the crowd faded to a dull hum, replaced by her own voice, soft and accusing. "You don't belong here. You never did." The words cut deeper than any taunt, a blade she turned on herself, carving doubt into her bones. A memory flickered sharp and unbidden, pulling her back to a night 5 years ago. She was 22, standing in a dimly lit office, her military kickboxing medals glinting on a desk. A man in a suit, his smile cold, had offered her a deal fight in an underground ring, win big or lose everything. She'd said no, her voice steady, but her heart racing knowing the cost. The scandal that followed, whispers of betrayal, her name dragged through the mud, had buried her career. Her coach, the one person she'd trusted, turned away. His words echoing, "You're not strong enough for this world." Now, in the gym's harsh light, that wound reopened raw and bleeding. She pressed her palm against her forearm, where a faint scar traced a line from a fight she'd barely survived, a mark of battles no one here could imagine. Her breath caught a quiet hitch that broke the silence in her corner. The gym's pulse throbbed on oblivious fighters, shadowboxing trainers, barking orders. The crowd's eyes elsewhere. Mia's fingers brushed the scar, tracing its jagged edge, and something shifted. She wasn't that 22-year-old anymore, trembling under the weight of a world that demanded she bend. Her hand steadied, her eyes opened, and the gym came back into focus, its mirrors no longer mocking, but watching. She reached up, tugging her frayed cap lower, a small act deliberate like a soldier checking her armor. The doubt lingered heavy as the air, but it didn't own her. Not yet. The water cooler hummed a steady drone that grounded her. She stood straighter, her cracked gloves flexing her hazel eyes, catching a glint of light under her cap. The crowd didn't see, didn't care. Their voices rising again, their phones flashing for the next spectacle. But Mia's silence was no longer surrender. It was a pause, a gathering of strength. The ring weighted, its canvas stained with the egos of those who'd stood before her. The bell was coming, and with it a chance to rewrite the story they had carved into her skin. Her scar burned under her touch, not a wound now, but a map of where she'd been, and where she was going. The bell rang, but Mia Carver hadn't moved. She stood in the iron-forged gym's ring, a shadow under the fluorescent glare, her cracked gloves steady her cap, low. The crowd leaned forward, their phones poised, expecting a quick slaughter. Derek Holt, the 78-kilo titan, strutted across the canvas, his grin wide, his tank top stretched tight. He jabbed the air, taunting, certain she'd crumble in seconds. Something felt off. Mia's hazel eyes, sharp as steel, tracked his every step. The gym's roar softened, a murmur, rippling through the mirrors. No one noticed the old janitor, his mop still staring at Mia like he'd seen a ghost. The fight began, and Derek lunged, his kicks sloppy, his laughter booming. "Time to go home, yoga girl," he shouted, his guard loose, his side exposed. Mia sidestepped, her footwork a whisper, weaving through his blows with surgical grace. A trainer's eyes narrowed, his whistle frozen. "She's reading him," he muttered, voice lost in the crowd's jeers. Seconds ticked by, 4, 5, 6. Derek's grin faltered, his kicks slower, his breath heavier. Mia's movements were a dance, her faded t-shirt swaying her silence, a strategy that turned his bravado into wasted air. The crowd's cheers stumbled, phones lowering as doubt crept in. Lauren Holt by the rope scoffed, but her ponytail stilled her smirk, unsteady. Something was wrong. Mia wasn't running. She wasn't falling. At second 8, an old fighter, his beard gray, pushed through the crowd, his voice hoarse. "That's Mia Carver," he said, his words cutting through the haze. Hartley the Ghost, undefeated military champ. Dropped a 90-kilo Marine in 9 seconds at the 15 Army Games. The gym froze, a gasp swallowing the noise. The janitor nodded, his eyes locked on Mia, as if confirming a legend. Tara, the receptionist, fumbled her clipboard, her sharp nails useless now. The truth unfolded like a blade. Mia hadn't wandered into their world. She'd built it. Her gloves, cracked and worn, weren't relics of failure, but trophies of a career buried by a scandal she'd refused to bow to. She'd said no to dirty money, walked away, and let the world forget her. Until now. Second 10. Derek swung a wild roundhouse, his confidence a crumbling wall. Mia ducked her body low, her torques clean, her hazel eyes locked on his liver, and she spun her spinning hook, kick a flash of precision, landing flush against his core. The impact was a thunderclap, drilling through muscles sinking deep. Derek's face drained, his breath gone, his 78-kilo frame folding like paper. He hit the canvas knees, buckling eyes rolling back, a giant undone by a 5'2" phantom. The gym went silent, the mirrors reflecting a new reality. Phones dropped frozen in hands that no longer knew what to capture. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder in the stillness, as if mourning the fall of their king. Lauren's face paled, her branded tank top, dull her voice, a stammer. "I didn't mean..." She started, but the crowd ignored her, their eyes on Derek convulsing on the mat. Tara stepped back, her clipboard, clattering her earlier taunts now ash. The SWAT officer, his badge dim, muttered. She didn't even flinch. Fighters who'd laugh now stood slack-jawed, their knuckles unclenched, their hashtags forgotten. The female fighter, her shiny gear. A mockery turned away, her Ronda Rousey jab, a wound she'd carry. Mia stood over the ring, her cap low, her scarred hands relaxed. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. She spoke, her voice low, each word a gavel. Strength isn't what you see, it's what you survive. Then she stepped down her sneakers, silent, leaving the ring to its ruin. The crowd parted their whispers, trailing her like smoke. Derek's team scrambled their faces, grim medics rushing to his side. The gym's hierarchy trembled, its mirrors no longer gleaming, but questioning. Mia walked toward the door, her gray t-shirt a banner of victory, her silence a verdict. The bell hadn't rung again, but the fight was over. The air held a new weight, not of liniment, but of reckoning. Something had shifted, and the Iron Forge would never be the same. Derek Holt lay crumpled on the canvas, and no one rushed to cheer him. The Iron Forge gym's mirrors reflected a stunned silence, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a jury delivering its verdict. Mia Carver stepped off the ring, her sneakers silent, her gray t-shirt a quiet banner of triumph. The crowd parted their eyes, avoiding Derek's motionless form, his 78-kilo frame now a monument to hubris. Medics knelt beside him, their voices low, their bags clattering as they checked his pulse. His gleaming gloves lay useless, his Texas Titan title a whisper, fading into the liniment-scented air. Lauren Holt stood frozen by the ropes, her branded tank top dull, her ponytail limp. She opened her mouth, but no words came, her authority buried under the weight of Mia's single kick. The gym's hierarchy unraveled like a frayed rope. Tara, the receptionist, clutched her clipboard, her sharp nails digging into the wood, her earlier taunts now a noose around her neck. A trainer approached, his voice cold. "Your stunt with the roster cost us sponsors, Tara. You're on desk duty indefinitely." Her face crumpled, her laughter, a memory that marked her as small. The SWAT officer, his badge dim, stood in the corner, his Pilates princess jab, a wound turned against him. His peers avoided his gaze, their whispers judging his misstep. "She didn't even flinch," he muttered, but no one cared. The female fighter, her shiny gear a mockery, tried to speak. "I didn't know she was a legend," she stammered, but a fellow fighter cut her off. "You trashed her. Own it." Her Ronda Rousey taunt had cost her respect, her confidence now a shadow. The crowd's allegiance shifted, their phones forgotten, their cheers silenced. Fighters who'd laughed now approached Mia, their voices hesitant, their knuckles unclenched. "Hey, Mia?" "I didn't mean to pile on," one said, his eyes darting to the floor. Another, a burly gym rat, mumbled, "You're the real deal. My bad." Their apologies were hollow, a desperate grasp to align with the new order. Others turned away, their faces flushed, unwilling to face the woman they had mocked. The old fighter, his beard gray, watched from the sidelines, his nod to Mia, a quiet salute. The janitor, his mop, still met her gaze for a moment, his eyes carrying the weight of recognition. The gym's mirrors no longer gleamed with arrogance, but reflected a truth they couldn't ignore. Mia had rewritten their rules without raising her voice. Mia stood by the water cooler, her cap low, her scarred hands unwrapping her tape with slow, deliberate care. Lauren approached her steps, unsteady, her voice shaking. "Mia, I didn't know. I'm sorry." Her plea was a fragile thread grasping for redemption. Mia's hazel eyes met hers sharp and unyielding, but she didn't lash out. She tilted her head just enough to acknowledge the words, then spoke her voice low, each syllable a stone. Don't apologize for ignorance. Learn from it. Lauren's face fell. Her coaching cred shattered her authority, a crown she'd lost. Mia turned away, her sneakers silent, her gray t-shirt catching the light. She didn't need their regrets. She didn't need their cheers. She walked toward the door, the crowd parting like a sea, their whispers trailing her like dust. The head trainer, his clipboard trembling, stepped forward, his voice firm. Iron Forge is done with bullying. Mia's kick showed us what strength really means. The crowd stirred, fighters murmuring their respect for Mia, a tide that couldn't be stopped. The open sparring events, once a stage for egos, would be scrapped, the gym's toxic edge dulled by a 5'2" phantom. The mirrors reflected a new reality, the heavy bag swaying as if in reverence. Mia's silence had been her gavel, her kick her verdict. She didn't look back, her cap low, her scarred hands relaxed. The Texas heat waited beyond the cinderblock walls, but the gym's air had changed heavy now, with the promise of reform. Mia's footsteps faded, leaving a legacy that would outlast the canvas stains. Mia Carver stepped into the Texas sun, and for the first time in years, the light didn't blur through tears. The Iron Forge gym's cinderblock walls loomed behind her, their scars a map of the battles she'd fought within. She paused, her gray t-shirt, catching the breeze, her cracked gloves tucked under her arm. Her hazel eyes traced the horizon, where Austin's skyline shimmered a world that had once turned its back. She remembered the days of being unseen, taunts that cut deeper than fists, laughter that branded her as nothing. Each word, each shove had built a cage she'd carried for too long, but today that cage lay shattered, its bars, broken not by anger, but by her quiet refusal to bend. She thought of the nights after the scandal when she was 22, her medals hidden in a drawer, her name erased by whispers of betrayal. She'd stood alone then too, believing the world's verdict she wasn't enough. Yet here in the gym's harsh light, she'd learned something sharper than any kick. Strength wasn't about being loud or loved. It wasn't about proving them wrong with shouts or swagger. It was about standing tall when no one clapped, about carrying your scars, not as shame, but as proof you'd survived. Mia didn't win because she was better than Derek or Lauren. She won because she'd stopped asking permission to exist. Her fingers brushed the scar on her forearm, its jagged line warm under the sun. She smiled, a small curve, not of triumph, but of peace. The gym's roar was gone, its mirrors now reflecting a truth she'd always known. She stepped forward, her sneakers soft on the pavement, her cap low, her shadow stretching long. Mia was enough. Always had been. If you've ever felt invisible, this story's yours too. Like, share, and tell us in the comments. When did you find your strength?